Good morning, everybody. We are gavelled in, and the time is, probably 9:05. And we are in Commissioners Court here in Nueces County Courthouse this morning to have another budget workshop. And I would like for everybody to, at this time, even though we don't have sort of a formal agenda, let's go ahead and proceed as we normally do. It always sets the tone with a prayer and a rising for the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America and to the Texas flag. First invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather here as we do so often amongst colleagues and friends to help our community with decisions that are critical. And we ask that you grace us with compassion for our people and wisdom to make good and righteous decisions. We also ask for us to have more understanding of one another and to bring us closer together as we try to do good. We ask that you bless our Nueces County family. We ask that you bless those that are suffering in our hospitals. We ask that you be with our friend and our colleague, Commissioner Chesney, and his family at a time that they also are in mourning. We ask that you protect all those who wear a uniform, both here and abroad, as they strive to protect all of us. We ask for all these things in your loving Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Does this replace the whole section?
As we all settle in this morning, I do want to have a little housekeeping. This morning, the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association Board of Directors is holding a virtual meeting to discuss rate increases of 5% that would highly impact and affect our coastal bend. I will be making comments on behalf of our county, and the only way to properly do so, because we never know when you'll be called, is to have the recording in the room. And so Maggie's listening in, and when it's my turn, I'm going to ask all of us I'll recess. It'll be an automatic recess, and if you would just remain quiet for the 2 minutes and listen, I think we as a court would benefit by all being present. Even though that we can't be there in person, we'll all be there virtually. I know we all feel very strongly about this issue. We all passed a resolution. So just a bit of housekeeping. When it's my turn to represent Nueces, we'll just take it as a automatic recess, and then we'll come right back in after I make comments. It's very, very quick. Okay, with that, we're going to open up this budget workshop and continue with the business of the county. All of us are here. Commissioner Chesney is online this morning, and every other commissioner is present. So yesterday we had a very high-level overview. Some good things happened last night. I got a piece of paper on my desk this morning from Kevin Kieschnick. Does that mean we have a real certified role, Dale?
Almost.
Almost? Okay.
Probably have it by the end of the day, but won't have it for today.
Okay, no worries. But just update everybody, we did get some numbers.
We did, but we're still working on getting the information from the comptroller to put it into the software to actually calculate the rate. So
Okay,
it's
so
still-
we're still waiting then.
Still waiting a little bit.
Okay,
We should
okay.
have, hopefully, we're almost done. We saw some errors when we did some calculations because the road fund was giving us a decrease on the rate instead of an increase, which is no.
We know that's
isn't
not true.
possible when your values go up, so
Okay.
we're still working on the numbers, and I don't want to give you inaccurate values.
Understood. The only thing I was going to say is, what was surprising to me, though, is that, so it's approximately TAV of 34.9 billion? Okay. Was that higher than you thought? A little?
A little higher, well, we were proposing, well, if you look at all the stuff we had with, when Noe did his presentations
Yeah.
back before, he was saying 3.5. we're right at 3.8 to 4.1%
Okay,
increase.
so not
it's
too far.
off.
Okay, just checking. Okay, and of course, we'll be here tomorrow in Commissioners Court for our public meeting. So in that case, I'm going to open up my budget workbook and suggest that first, we take any questions from yesterday. Just do an all call, so we can start off right, and then we'll pitch back to Dale. Is there any, you had time last night to think about it, digest it, look over some of the numbers? Are there any questions for Dale over what we reviewed yesterday? Because it's a good time to ask.
We did make some revisions on tab A, which we took a few things out that we already discussed when during our discussion. So you should have received a replacement for tab A, as well as we updated tab J, which is your budget challenges, where we put ARP question mark on those that we know. There, I put a subtotal at the bottom for everything that's in star that Teresa gave you the information for yesterday. And then we updated the balances on tab M, where we add the additional emergency management person that was discussed. All the rest of that has not changed from our discussion. I'll be glad to go over anything we need to talk about. And I'd like to bring up something later in our discussion on when we get to our two of our special revenue funds. One is the courthouse security. What does the court plan to do for security of this courthouse? Whether we add more staff or add more places where we scan people. If we do, then that's going to cost additional funds and additional expense to the general fund. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have had or brought up, and we can definitely go through any of this detail that you see fit, and I'll be glad to try to be the best. And unfortunately, we don't have the rates. I would like to have had that to let you know our good starting point. But as soon as we have the information, we hopefully have it for tomorrow's meeting that's on the agenda. And at that point in time, if it's allowed on the agenda, I might be able to expand a little bit on the agenda to talk about what our projections we would be talking about here in the budget. But I'll have to defer to the county attorney whether we can or not.
Okay. So you've got some adjustments, and then what about the challenges page? Did you also make adjustments on the asterisk, or?
Yes, on Jay, I still left the asterisks on there. I
Got it.
put some question marks on the one
Question
for the
marks.
lifeguard services for the risk assessment.
Perfect.
As well as the Metrocom software. The rest are still up for court for discussion. I subtotaled the ones that are asterisks that Teresa had done before at $2.4 million of known costs. There are some other stuff there that include prior year changes that was probably a star, unless y'all decide that these positions are not necessarily needed this year. If it is, then we need to increase 267 for this year, so that could be a star, and that would add to the cost of what we need to increase.
Okay, and I have maybe some good information on the Metrocom software that Teresa could, and in fact, Peter Collins just left. So we think that number is much lower. And what happened was, Dale, is that is the right number, but if you look at the whole budget of Metrocom, and we only pay our 23%, Teresa?
24.
I'm sorry, 24% this year, it was 23 last year, sorry. But it turns out it's 207,000?
Well, I have 264.
264, I'm sorry, okay. So that number, Dale, is a little bit better than we thought. It's 264, but we would like to verify it with you. The budget meeting for Metrocom is August 25th. So, I'm sorry, August 27th. So that's when the budget gets approved. And so that is the right number for the software, but remember, we only,
Now, that 264, did that also include the increase in the salaries that they had proposed?
It does not.
it does not,
So that's why it's the 264.
right,
So if
but
we
the
add
salaries,
it was $800,000 for salaries, so that it's still
Yeah.
above 300,000.
correct. So we'll have to figure that out, but of course, it's kind of hard because the meeting hasn't taken place to approve that budget, so we don't know if the salaries will take place, but we think they will.
And
So
I
we
agree,
should probably just presume.
Yeah, because the rate probably went down, because when they had a quote, a proposal for the new software of 1.1 million, and when they actually got the true invoices, it was a lot less.
So we think that, so I mean, we'll have a real number for you on August 27th, but, I mean, we could probably guess and take an educated guess. But we know that the software component of it
It's 1.1 million.
is 1.1 million. But then if you put it in the budget, our portion of it turns out to be 264.
Or 325, whatever.
Well, again, if that was only for the software, I know they proposed increasing all the salaries for.
And then all the salaries.
So that would add to that 264.
Right, that's why you've got that number, yeah.
Right.
Right, okay. And we can,
And we're still proposing hopefully using ARP
ARPA,
funds.
exactly. So I just wanted you guys to know that. Only that in 2 years, we won't be able to pay those salary increases.
That salary increase is not it is a increase, but it's not a significant
It's
large
not
increase. So
significant.
it's
Okay.
20% of $800,000.
Yeah.
Or 24% of $800,000, so.
Okay. So, okay, so where would you guys like to begin? This workshop is really meant for us to be able to discuss with Dale the recommendations. And if you kind of move through this list, this is where you really we need to hear from all of you if there's any issues. I mean, I'm just gonna go down, we've talked about the software. Are there any other questions about the software? Lifeguard services, risk assessment, boundary dispute, because it's the last three that are really important to really discuss here openly. But how about for the rest of them? Commissioner Chesney, we're guesstimating, we certainly don't know, but we think 300,000 is a good number there. We don't have a finalized number, but that's in addition to the amounts that we already have, budgeted.
And I guess the question next to it is will ARPA funds be able to pay for that? And there's a question mark by it. I don't know if that was covered yesterday when I was not there or not, but is there an answer on that, or are we waiting to find out on that?
We're waiting to find out. Maggie and I are drafting more letters this afternoon, and we did not include that in our last inquiry, so we're gonna make that an inquiry. Basically, there's a lot of, so let me just tell you how I think it counts, so then you can kind of help me reason through it. So we'll have our lost revenue calculations, and you can apply those to government services. We believe this would be counted as a government service. I think it's a super strong case. But I like hearing it, but I believe that's the case to be made. So that means that the 3.5 million that we're guesstimating are lost revenues, we could apply a piece of that to lifeguard services. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
And that's where we think we stand very strong. And it would be very nice to be able to do that for the next 2 years. It would give us our leg up until we get great grants, great revenue building models back in our parks again. There's a lot of ways to bring revenue, but it would be nice to not to have to figure out how to do it in 30 days. And so we think ARPA would really be a perfect solution there. It seems to
Dale,
fit.
what's the Bank of America debt service increase?
When y'all agreed to have ABM do the construction for the fairgrounds and other items, we went out for a loan, and the loan was from the Bank of America. The Bank of America loan was for $25 million, so we financed, and that requires a loan payment. This is a loan payment that's similar to what we call our SECO funds, where it's for energy savings, which to be paying for this. However, all the construction they've had this year has not been related to any savings, so we still must pay for the debt service. The total debt service this year is $1.5 million.
They were our financiers, Bank of America, we're the financing company.
And that's what financed the ABM contract to do the fairgrounds as well as the other locations that the ABM contract submitted for.
Including the boilers here at this courthouse and juvenile and all of the ADA. I mean, there's, as you well know, there's a litany of things. And I call that paying the piper line. We've had to pay the piper.
We haven't had no savings on that area at all?
So far, the only thing that I know that the ABM has done is done the road work and concrete out at the fairgrounds. They haven't started the boiler work or the other work that would give you energy savings at the moment. It's just in the process of doing that. Once they start working on the boilers and the air handlers that are in their contract, then it will possibly be savings of money that we could have. But right now, there's none to calculate at the moment.
We just did the roof. I mean, literally, they're still in construction.
Now, the new roof may assist on energy savings because it's definitely a new roof and more energy savings because of it holding out the heat and the cold. But right now, with the work they've done, there's not any savings at this moment to cover the additional savings. But we hope in the future there'll be savings to cover this. And we'll see a reduction in some of our expenses, but we'll still have to do the transfer to cover the debt
Probably
service,
another year before we see that, maybe more.
possibly.
So what happened to the 750,000 that was supposed to be, I didn't know it was 1.5 million. I thought it was
2
750.
payments.
I thought it was
There's two
750.
payments. When I first only had one payment of $795,000 because when I evaluated the debt service requirement, there's two payments of one principal, one interest. And so the total payments for this year coming up for the Bank of America is 1.5 million. Required debt service.
I think one is in October and the other one's in April. So it's 2 different years, but it's our same fiscal year.
Well, October is our beginning of
Same.
fiscal
Beginning
year.
of our same year, right, same fiscal year.
Same
We didn't pay the first
Same,
one?
sorry, yeah, fiscal year.
So the first payment we didn't pay, now we had to pay all of it?
Well, we've already made a payment, but we'll make our first payment in October. And then we'll pay the next one in, as the judge was saying, I believe in August. And
So how much we pay in October? 750 or 1,000, 1
the
million?
first payment will be $950,000. The final payment will be around $500,000 if I got the debt service correct on the balances we have. Total is 1.5 million.
So December, we need 795, right?
For October, we need $900,000.
October, this is December.
The first payment is principal plus interest.
It's a loan. You're gonna be paying every year for 15 years.
Yeah, no. It's a big loan.
And this loan goes on that goes on what we call the it's our M and O side, not our interest and sinking. So
That's correct.
typically, you don't see debt on this side of the equation, but you do in energy savings performance contracts because that's by statute how it must be done.
Okay, well, it's in the
So there-
abstract anyway, so we gotta pay it.
So the 2 payments are 791, 267.28 due in October, and then it's due again in April.
791. 58.
Excuse me, Dale, I just want to understand correctly. Is this for the fairgrounds, the loans we took?
The ABM contract covers some boilers here in the courthouse, some areas of the juvenile. Majority of the work is the fairgrounds. It covers a roof and some lighting and some construction work on the parking area. But the majority of the cost is probably the fairgrounds, but does cover other areas when the court approved the ABM contract.
So we had to take out 2 loans to do that,
Just one,
just 1 loan.
a $25 million loan.
Thank you.
And we can give you a copy of all of the different areas that were covered.
And the county actually paid like $8.9 million of our own money.
Right.
Yeah, the
towards that.
total ABM contract was 35 million, but we only borrowed 25 million because we already had 10 million, as Teresa was saying, already established in some of our old COs that we had that we were able to use. So the portion of that was already prepaid, and so we just had to finance the remaining 25 million.
Thank you.
I did,
Can we go into recommended positions?
right, I just want to make sure, are we good on everything else?
Well,
Because it'd be nice to focus on those positions. Any other questions on the lifeguard services, risk assessment, lawsuit, or the software? That way, the rest of the time can be spent on positions, and we can ask Connie to move to
the
that
risk
slide.
assessment, is that for the probation?
That's CSCD, adult
That's correct.
probation.
No probation? Yeah, I don't agree with that. He wants a third position?
That is correct.
Have you spoken with him?
I'll call him, but he hasn't returned my call.
Okay, let's get him to call you so he can, it's hard to disagree with something if you're unaware of what the situation is with the court system and the backlog due to COVID-19 and what his situation is. And if we want to have more people, it's usually because there's a real need. And again,
We paying for the whole amount now. First it was 75-25, and then went to 50, right? And then now we're paying the whole thing. So that's gonna be, with that 50,000, I know the courts wanted it, but the time that we got it, back then, it was 75-25, I think, I remember. And, then it,
so we have a current interlocal and it pays for the current pretrial risk assessment officers. It ends in September, just so you know. And
Actually, it's in August, Commission.
it ends in August, okay, sorry, ends in August.
CCD's fiscal year ends in August.
because now we're picking up the tab for 122,429, right?
Correct.
Because we were
That's what we're
first,
currently
when we
spending for
first
now.
started with the judge, the district judge, it was 70-30, you know, and then after that, we continue it because they wanted it. And, so now, then we picked up, now again this year, now we're picking up that plus the third person you want, so they're not paying anything, they're not matching anything?
No.
Why?
The decision of what the court had approved is when we first got the grant approved, as you're saying, 75-25, where we paid 75% of the salaries and the grant paid 25, and they paid for the equipment, but they didn't see that the grant was not re-awarded. However, the Board of Judges, as well as some of the courts, decided that it was still necessary because of the population of our jail. To continue this process, it was re-awarded through the court here last year as 100% reimbursement from the general fund to the CSCD to cover the 2 employees that are there, to try to limit the amount of people that are in the jail, to try to get the people that are not really required to be in the jail and can be in other places to try to do that. And then we just have continued that. We would like, the courts would still like to continue that, because we've been anywhere from 95 to 100% the last 3 or 4 months. We know the courts haven't been running yet, but still, we're at a high level to try to do this. If you look at your documents on tab B, you'll look at tab B9, where it says jail assessment program. You'll kind of get some rough history of how it has worked and what it's done, and it kind of has a little bit of the information of why the CSC director is requesting additional person. Right now, there are 2 individuals. If anyone, and they're there basically every day of the week, so they kind of alternate shifts. However, if one person is sick, then that one other person must fill in for when that person is sick. So there's a possibility of having uncovered time. So they want to try to have additional person there to try to cover that cost. The only impact is the $50,749 to make the total impact of the general fund of 173, where it was 122,429. But it kind of gives you a rough estimate of here and why the CSC director is requesting this position.
Yeah, I understand going from 122 to 173, but is there any way you can get a grant or something to match those funds?
We did get an original grant through TIDC to try to work with this. However, the TIDC, with the evaluation of this, did not renew the grant. I believe we did apply for it, but they did not renew the grant because we were the first one that was trying to do this, and they didn't see that it was something they wanted to continue. We can always try to redo the grant, and I'm sure Maria has constantly looked into these levels. But sometimes these grants are not the easiest ones to obtain. But we did try, and we did get it one time, but they did not renew it.
Okay, so now we're picking up the tab, and this is gonna be like a permanent thing now from now on, and without, I mean, I would recommend that somehow they need to also submit some kind of a grant to cover some of this, you know, and try to help cover it, you know.
Why don't we call him and ask him and talk to us on the phone in about 30 minutes or so? Call William and see if he can do that, so he can talk to you about the situation. You nailed it, Dale. The issue is that we are in non-compliance with jail standards. Let me say that again. We are not compliant with jail standards. What are you going to do to change that?
Yeah, I'm
One
not-
thing
I'm
to
not-
do
I'm not
that-
arguing about the concept, Judge. This is,
Right, so those-
you need these people. You're missing the boat here too. What I'm saying is, we come from 30% to now to 100%. Okay, that's fine. So this is gonna be part of our budget now?
Every year, every year you have to
We
reevaluate.
need to figure that out, but I'm not, as far as the concept, I don't have a problem with the concept. They need it. I mean, I've been on probation before. I mean, I know how it works, but the thing is, I mean, I'm asking if there's any way we can get more help, why not find it? I'm not.
Right.
I'm not-
I don't think
I'm not
anyone's-
saying he's wrong and whatever, or anybody's wrong. I'm just saying, this is a good program, and probably is, but we just need some more help.
So that's what ARPA, that's why it says ARPA question mark next to it. That is, in many ways, the federal help that you're asking for. It's for 2 years, and it could get us back on our feet with this third pretrial risk assessment officer. If we can get it qualified, which I believe we can, you go back to the same logic. Is it a government service? Yes. Can it be funded with ARPA from lost revenues? Yes. So that's why I say to you, it's exactly what you're asking for. When you start the grant process, it starts in court, and from that moment to the time the grant comes could be 1 year. That's how long the cycle takes. So if you want to address the need now, we have a way, and that's ARPA. And that's why that acronym is right there next to it.
Also, the reason why we put the question mark is this risk assessment also tests mental health, and mental health is a definitely important area of the ARPA funds.
But it gotta be labeled mental health.
Well, they when they do the risk assessment, they do a risk assessment, determine, do they first really belong in jail? If they're there for a reason, can we find another location to put them in, whether it's for mental health or whatever other situation they may be going through, and don't really deserve to be locked up in our county jail? So that's kind of what the risk assessment goes through. So that's why we feel the ARPA funds can cover this for the next 2 years possibly.
And are we for sure that ARPA's gonna cover?
We're in the negotiation, we're in the process of reviewing that at the moment.
Okay,
And as the judge said, we have the lost revenue that has a little more leniency than the regular ARPA funds, but it has to be used for certain situations like the judge is saying, but we're constantly, the judge has already talked to the Treasury Department as well as Haggerty as well as others to try to make sure these are all qualifying events, and that's where we're trying to finalize the qualification.
And this has that two-factor, we're gonna also claim that it's a mental health programming. But just remember, and I don't have my phone, so I can't do my calculation, although that's not a calculator. If you think about $80 a day in jail, what these people do is help expedite people out of jail. And if you're 99% full in your jail, you've got to come up with real solutions on how to get people expedited that don't need to be in jail. This is how we do it. This is the process that's correct. And what I'm saying to you is that if William had the means, he wouldn't be asking. This is a department that we work very closely with all year long. Sometimes he says, I've got it, you don't need to help. We've gone through that multiple times in the last fiscal year. He is asking for our help because he believes that it needs to be budgeted for. The reason we put ARPA is to hopefully come out of this budget workshop understanding that there are at least on this little slide, $1 million, close to $1 million of potentials that can come off this list and onto, into another bucket. So,
Judge, also, this position is not needed by CSCD. They're recommending the position to facilitate the county to move the people out of the jail. They don't need this position. It's a recommendation to help the county,
yeah,
Just for the release of inmates.
to help with
Right.
that assessment to get people moving.
How sure are we that when they expedite this inmates out, are they ready to go out really, or are they just expedite them out, getting them out of jail?
I feel confident that they are professionally assessed, and there are all kinds of safeguards, including the magistrates, that make certain, they help the magistrates, they help everybody, the entire judicial system, make sure, I mean, asking that question is like asking, how sure we are that a police officer is making a
understand
proper
that, but
arrest?
I'm at-
I mean, the answer is, I have confidence in our professionals that work for Nueces County. This is what they do. These risk assessors are trained properly, and we have to have confidence that they are following the law and following the risk assessment that's set out, provided by the law.
That's what I've heard in the past from the sheriff's department and others. It's a revolving door. They just, let them out and then they're back in for the same problem. I just want to make sure that when they say, yes, this person is ready to go out into the public,
So-
more or less, he's gonna, react that way. I can understand people always fall back to, their sickness or whatever they're doing.
Yes.
But I just want to make sure that they're not just expediting.
There is a
people.
revolving door, and that revolving door is very real. And until we get transitional housing for people who have substance abuse problems, and until we have a real diversion center, that revolving door will continue. But it doesn't change the fact that if they don't belong in jail, they don't belong in jail. We need to do a comprehensive approach, which is why when we get there after budget, you will see a recommendation from MHID, Emergency Management, Hospital District, and probably CCPD to get with it and dedicate some of these ARPA funds for a jail diversion center. You cannot do one thing and make everything bad go away. But this is definitely a beginning to make some positive change.
I agree, and I also agree that we definitely need some kind of housing for these people to where they can be monitored maybe,
Yes?
maybe like a halfway house or something like
Yes.
that. But I'm concerned that they're just not,
I really think we would benefit by having, and that's always sometimes we don't know who we need to answer questions. Excuse me, I'm going to go quick recess. Barbara Canales. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Barbara Canales. I have the honor to serve as county judge for Nueces County. I represent more than 360,000 coastal residents that have been involved with the constant challenges that our state and indeed our country have seen. A pandemic, more than our fair share of tropical storms, and so many of our residents are still recovering from Hurricane Harvey and Hannah. Of course, we haven't even begun to mention the impact of Winter Storm Uri. This past June 23rd, the Nueces County Commissioners Court, who have gathered here behind me, unanimously adopted a resolution that has been submitted for your consideration. This resolution is in opposition to any Texas Windstorm Insurance Association rate increases. We stand with our legislative delegation in opposition to this rate increase. We stand here united at a time when new laws are only days away from taking effect that will make such significant changes to the operation of the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association. The proposed 5% rate increase, we believe, is not only misguided, but it is truly detrimental to the thousands of residents along the coast. Everyone loves to come to the coast, and so this is not a uniquely coastal problem. This is a problem that belongs to all Texans. On behalf of the residents of Nueces County, I strongly ask that you vote down this proposed rate increase and use the time to work with lawmakers and policyholders.
Yeah, he's like on
to
vacation,
ensure
but
that Texas Windstorm
HR's gonna
Insurance
try to
Association
contact him.
continues to serve as an efficient,
He may text me and then I'm gonna give him
and
that number.
reliable resource which secures our future, safeguards and promotes investment, and helps us recover when nature strikes. After all, today is August the 3rd. August the 3rd, 1970, in Corpus Christi, Texas, was the day Celia hit. It was also the birth, if you will, of the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association. I've heard it said that you must take personal responsibility. How many times have we heard the leader of our state, Governor Abbott, say such things. I believe he's right. You must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances that we live on the Gulf Coast. You cannot change the seasons or the wind, but you can change yourself. That is something that you have charge of. I ask you to change yourself and think about the impact to all of Texas with this 5% rate increase. I appreciate the opportunity to make public comment today and ask only that you do what is right. Thank you. Just wait till she disconnects. Commissioner Chesney, will you be making comment as well? Commissioner Chesney? Will you be?
Judge, I can't, I'm sorry, I'm trying to,
Will you
can
be
you hear me?
making, yes, will you be making TWE a comment? We're happy to stop for you when it's your turn.
I was not aware that I was able to do what you just did, so I did not get signed up. If there's a way to do that, then that would be great. But obviously, I was out yesterday and did not know.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, we're
No,
gonna,
it's not your fault.
we're gonna send you something. Just look on your email, and then Maggie, in just a moment, will call you. You can mute, and she can see if she can help make that arrangement for you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, back in the saddle here, we go back and we're ready to talk about prior year positions. Do you want to go there? Can someone tell me the tab? Is that O? No, L? Let's see.
Actually, it's in your list, just your subtotals, but your actual list is on B18, where all
Okay.
the mid-year changes have done and what period of time they covered.
So let's just take a look there and see if there's any that are causing concern, because these are all positions that we made a decision during the last year that it was an important decision to make. And so if we can assume that all of these will stay, then we can concentrate on the last two sub-items. These did cost the county budget $267,000 cumulatively, and they're all listed on B18 and all the way through B20, B18 through B20. And just take a quick look, because as they say, this is your chance to ask questions, and I don't mind getting people in here to justify what's going on, but you can see the tax office had a very small net situation of $200. Oh, good. Good, he just left. Can he hang on for a few minutes? $200. Precinct 2, $700. Chapter 59, hate to argue with that one. That's not even coming out of ours. It's just a budgetary assignment there from that forfeiture fund. County Court at Law, 5, Judge McCoy's. Mechanical Maintenance, District Clerk, very, very nominal. The big ticket item is the ME's office, Sheriff's Office. We added, was that Chief Cook, right? No?
Well, the sheriff's office for it would be adding the chief, that is correct. Well, actually, we reassigned Chief
Reassigned.
Pettis from
Right.
a assistant chief to chief.
Right, so it's really just a change there, and that
Small
change.
change. It was not a significant increase.
Right, and then we made $62,000 changes for the district attorney. You remember that had to do with juvenile, so we helped them and created new costs that totaled $62,000.
But as you said, the largest one were the two for the medical examiner. That'd be the pathology assistant and the autopsy assistant. That was done in I believe, January, if I remember what Teresa had mentioned.
Right,
And I know these positions are filled and are currently, they're currently using these two positions, so.
Right,
They did
Okay.
have funds, last year to rearrange, so there was no impact on last year's budget. However, to maintain these two positions currently, we'd have to increase the budget by that amount for the next fiscal year.
exactly. Yeah, we were good for 1 year, but not for future years.
He's a assistant chief for a long period of time that was able to cover these costs.
Right. And I would remind the court that in order to do as many autopsies as we have, and I have my little, from December 16th, we had a presentation, and our decedent load now is 853 per year. And in order to do that many autopsies, you have to have multiple pathologists just to have certification. So although it's a painful, maybe price tag, unfortunately, it's just same way you feel about perhaps other costs that we pay that are unfunded mandates. But we do have this very high load. And with population growth, it's predicted in under 10 years to do a total of 947. So this number the medical examiner's office will only continue to grow. And so we're going to have to deal with that. But that's a very important presentation that we had dealing with growth. And again, we have to have so many pathologists in order to, I feel like the rule is 250 or
Yes,
per.
yes.
And so that's
Maintain
why.
your certification,
To
yes.
maintain your certification. And we take care of a 100-mile radius. And again, I have a little map. It's amazing how many people we take care of. So again, this is something it's on my legislative agenda list for next session. How can we get a little money to help a regional? I mean, if it was just us, well, that's our business. But look really what we're doing, I'll put it up here if we're live, or not, to the public, yes? Yeah, so I'm gonna show you all that's in blue here are the areas that the medical examiner office covers. And so it's a huge area, and that's why our load, even though 90% are Nueces County decedents, we still have to have that ratio of one pathologist for 250 decedents. So that's why we had to add. We were short, if you will. We were running with only a part-timer and a full-timer, and now we've made some adjustments, but it will cost the county some dollars. And I predict we'll need a third, because if you take 250 times 3, it's 750. And again, we're averaging on bodies this year, what did I say? I have to flip back to the page, but a
And as you
very
said-
high number.
As you said, most of your medical examiners are regional to begin with, where one in the region, then the next closest is Bear County, and then Harris County, then down in the valley where they might have, so we definitely have to cover these small counties because they can't afford the entire operations of a medical examiner, so these are definitely regional.
Right. Yes, so we're doing 722, so you can see we need 3, not 2. And so, again, this is why it's gonna be an important issue to deal with, is how we're gonna
Currently, we do have
maintain-
the full-time medical examiner, and we recently hired the chief assistant.
Yes.
And we have this pathology assistant, so we're working on that, but as you said, these are not cheap positions.
No, they're not. But there's all kinds of good ideas that have resulted from this discussion, and I do think a really strong discussion with Hidalgo County, for instance, and some of the other counties that have leaned on us, even in times of crisis. I've learned a lot about standby pricing, with equipment. Maybe we ought to have standby pricing. In other words, just to be able to say, I want to execute an interlocal with you, maybe there should be a cost for that. There's ways that we can sit and look at this, but there's no way around not having the right ratio. And again, and I'm to find the right slide, but we're the lion's share of it in Nueces County. So if you look at our load, it's 609, and all the other counties are, let's see, 244. So that's the ratio. We're doing 609, and then all the other 18 counties, 19 counties that we service are 244, which represents a partner population of over 1.6 million people. Again, I'm going to encourage you, all of you got this back in December, this notebook, but it's a good idea when you're in budget, when you say, do we really need this? You've got to go back to the data. The data tells you what you need. And this is a very, very good, and if we can provide that to any commissioner who didn't get it, let us know. Okay, well, other than that, does everybody feel confident that these positions that we named last year will have your support for this year's budget? Are there any questions? Because that at least takes us,
Dale, can you kind of explain all these things that we do and these agreements we have, interlocal agreements? Why they're always in the red?
What was the question?
Why are they always in the red,
What's red?
the medical examiner?
By red as a reduction of costs instead of an increase of costs. If it's red, it's a reduction.
Well, I'm saying about the revenues that come in. I mean, they're doing all of that work. Why are the revenues not paying for anything? Or what are we standing at?
Well, like most other county offices, the medical examiner does not make enough money to run the entire office. They receive money from outside entities. We're working on getting you the revenue cost scenario. My staff's working on that now to get you that information. The main revenue for this is autopsies of other outside counties. And I'm not gonna say the exact amount, but in anywhere we receive about $600,000 or $700,000 or $800,000 a year in revenue. 20% of that or 40% of that goes to the ME as a commission. So let's assume it's $400,000 to $500,000 of revenue, but the total office is 1.5 million. So we know it's similar to other county departments. The office does not make enough money to totally operate itself fiscally. But so it gets money from the general fund as many other departments do.
So from general fund, we probably give like $600,000 a year?
Probably more than that. It's a general fund department, so
I'm sorry?
it is a general fund department.
Yeah.
so may I tell you that I did a little research on this to show you how off we are on our fees? So, let's take, and I'm sorry, some of them are off and some of them are not, right? Depending on which county you're looking at. But I compared us to counties of similar population, and I compared us to larger counties. And I'd like to share this with you because it's easier to do so. But for the exam, for example, what they call a natural level 1 autopsy, we charge $2,600. Bear, $2,500. Travis, $3,300. Galveston, $2,500. If you average them all, by the way, Tarrant, which is Fort Worth, $1,600. So if you average them all, we're perfectly almost level. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest, but we're right there in the median. For the unnatural autopsy, we are the highest of all those counties at $3,600. For an external exam, I would say we are also the highest. And I compared us to, again, counties that were big and counties of similar population. I also want you to know that I looked at the statutes of Code of Criminal Procedure. A medical examiner may charge reasonable fees for services provided by the office under this article, and it lists what they may charge. And the Commissioner's Court must approve the amount of the fee before the fee may be assessed. The fee may not exceed the amount necessary to provide the services. And it may not be assessed against the district attorney's office or any county office. So we've done a little bit of homework here to showcase all the different fees from reports all the way to testimony, toxicology, and lab. And I'm still working on all of the different, comparisons. But again, it's great when you can look at all of these And I want to thank Rachel in my office before she left for helping me with this. But the bottom line is that we're not out of range depending on how you want to look at it. But it's unfair because Travis and Tarrant, I mean, their tax assessed values are huge, right? They have a huge budget to work with. But at any rate, I thought you would find that interesting. So I'm going to send it to Tyner and he can send it to all of you. And we can continue to do it. But it's no different than asking veteran services or any other service. I mean, do you make any money or do you help people? We don't make money here. The only way I see us making money is with a laboratory, which I've been advocating for about 2 years now. We can make money on lab work because we can help people from all over the state if we can find a niche of what they need and what's not available. And I think that that's going to be in our future if you want to see your budget get better controlled. But as we grow, these services are going to expand, unfortunately, because growth means more people dying. And also, when your community is 3 times more likely to have a drug overdose than any other county in Texas, guess what happens? You have more people dying and needing autopsies. And so what I want to say is that there is a potential possibility to, in our opioid settlement, perhaps also see some dollars being used for this service, if you can show the data. So every time we bring up data and everybody wonders why we do that, why do we spend money on reports? Well, if you want to go get grants or you want the legislature to give you dollars, you better be able to prove it. But anyway, there's nothing we can do here except for plan for growth, plan for more dollars here. It's a necessary evil, I suppose, here. I'll send it to you, Tyner, so that you can see those. I know the court would be interested in looking at our fees versus everybody else's and what the authority is. I'll send it.
So what we're saying right now is, those 2 positions they had, we got to bring them back up.
If you want to continue the services, yes, they're currently employed. If you decide the positions are no longer necessary, those positions will need to be terminated and the people fired.
And both of them were full-time employees?
That's correct.
Didn't he? I thought he had a temp, one of them.
He does have temporaries because when, before he hired the assistant medical examiner, there was, it was just him doing some autopsies, and we had to have because that office runs pretty much 7 days a week. During the weekend, we had to have temporary services come in and continue performing autopsies. We have a very large backup, so we've constantly had temporary services in there for the remainder of the year. And as you've been seeing on budget change orders, we've been required to bring a lot of budget change orders in for temporary services for that purpose.
So bringing those 2 on board, you're still gonna have the problem, well, not the problem, but maybe the issue of doing temporary employees in the weekend.
Well, he still had to have the pathology assistant as an assistant, so he still had to hire the additional assistant medical examiner that actually is a medical examiner, which he recently did. So I'm sure that some of that temporary services can be decreased, but there's still possibly a need for someone on the weekend to do the services. So yes, there may continue this, yes.
Okay.
They don't have anybody on call for the weekends? I mean, the regular people?
They have to have someone on call, and the last time the person was on call was out of West Texas.
My goodness.
That's the closest we could find one.
Okay, and do those other counties that were mentioned by the judge, their medical examiners, do they get the same percentage as our medical examiner does, you know?
Work with theirs. I have no idea what they charge, the other, their pathologist may charge an agreement. It's just that when, we first came in association with our medical examiner for other outside entities, the medical examiner came before the court and negotiated a contract with the court on saying if I do autopsies of outside agencies, I should get so much percentage of the revenue coming in to cover my services, because I'm doing extra work for the county. So that was an agreement with the court. I can't tell you what the other counties are charging, so I'm not aware of that. It was just an agreement with y'all. Y'all can definitely possibly bring in Dr. Shaker and see about maybe renegotiating that. That's something that y'all, and y'all's control and how that works. Right now, it's a 60-40 split.
Thank you for the explanation, but I think, yeah, that's something we should look into.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, and we could even have a new agreement that says if you perform an autopsy, then that there is I mean, I need to make sure what our parameters are statutorily, but I mean, maybe the county can also have some sort of a fee for using the facilities that we're doing. I mean, that's always a possibility, but we need to, again,
That's what those costs for the autopsy is actually the use of the facility and the staff. So as you said, we're probably the highest on several of them, so I don't see where, you know, we might still look into that and see what other entities might be doing, but that's probably supposed to be covering part of the admin costs as well as the medical staff of doing their work.
Probably something we need to research too, to see what, maybe we can do something different, you know. Anything that comes into the county will help us. I mean, you know.
So currently, I did a real fast revenue scenario for what we, right now for this particular office, we've received $670,000 of income as of today.
okay, 670.
How much, Bill?
670,000. Now, the budget's 1.8 million dollars, so you see we're still short $1.2 million on the total expenses to revenues, but currently with the autopsy fees, lab fees, x-ray fees and other reimbursements that the medical examiner can charge, we've received $670,000 in income.
I mean,
Okay.
that's good. There aren't many departments that create income, so this one at least can do something. And again, you know, we're looking at software. Daryl Earwood, I know if you're listening, I know you're looking at some software with the medical examiner's office to do more higher efficiencies and streamlining. Again, I mean, there are many ways, but it starts with modernization. So I know that there are many things that we can do, but I did want to know if our fees were too off, and what I discovered is that we are getting just fine, where there's no inequities on our part. We're
And Judge,
either-
as you said, we definitely, if we had a lab, we can charge more, but we do get some reimbursements from the lab that if we have a lab for an autopsy outside the county, we charge them for that, so we have some item on that. I know the court's looking at possibly getting a new building, and maybe we can work with the university on having where we have a teaching school there and work with them and get money there.
Thank you, Dale. That's a good explanation. And like I said, I'm going to refer you guys back to the Smith Group's feasibility. Go back and read it. It really presents the case that, you know, again, we could use some help regionally. The way to do that is to establish a center. Money doesn't come for nothing. I think that's a song, Tyner. But you got to have a reason to get money or get grants. And that's why a center of excellence in behavioral health is great. It's why it's also great to have a center for pathology. These are the two areas. We're never going to get a medical school here. Never. But we can be centers of medical excellence where we could have medical school students and also residency and fellowship programs. And if we can concentrate there and design for our future, then you can see that there's potential for revenue. But no one's just going to give you money for nothing. You're going to have to create a reason, and that's why the Smith Group's work should not be held in vain. We should find, after we come out of this horrible pandemic, we need to refocus and repurpose ourselves to figure out how we're going to work with other partners to get that established.
Excuse me, is there any way we can join forces, like with a Spahn Hospital and their pathology?
So they're not a teaching institution, but they do receive residency programs, but there's not a pathology residency program. But that's what we're talking about doing, is forming an alliance with Texas A&M, of which Spahn could participate. But the pathology, we do the pathology.
But we send it off,
You mean like the lab work?
Yeah.
Yeah, we send off quite a bit. But for example, there are 10 labs in the entire state of Texas that are molecular diagnostic labs. We have one of them here. And because of that, we have been special in how we get resources for COVID-19. But we can test for tons of other types of viruses. But what if, we could be a much higher level laboratory that would encourage people to come and collaborate with us?
No, it's just the last time Dr. Shaker was here, he said he had to send the lab work up somewhere.
Correct,
Hundreds of miles away,
right.
but I was just wondering if we could get it done here locally.
If we had the right facility, if we had the right equipment, the answer is yes.
But currently, currently he has to send them, a lot of it goes to Huntsville.
Okay.
Yeah, we can definitely do it. I mean, we do things that nobody does in the whole world, and we do it right here in Corpus Christi, Texas. Like, repair helicopters, like, we can be that, but you have to actually think that you can do it, and then you've got to strategize to build it and finance it.
No, this was my thinking of joining forces with Spawn or any other hospitals that, would work with us.
Right, it's just that the SPON doesn't have, pathologists on staff.
Really? Thought they
No,
did.
because we do the autopsies, they don't do that. But they have a morgue.
No, in my high school years, I used to work at Spawn in the OR department.
Well, and remember in the basement at Memorial, that was the old morgue.
No, I
And
understand
so,
that,
I
but,
mean,
sometimes a surgeon would sit here, take this to pathology.
oh, well, of course, we have
Laboratory.
laboratories. Yes, right. We do have, forgive me, I was thinking about medical examiners. If you're talking about
Talk
laboratory,
about pathology where,
Yeah.
maybe they could get her.
we have a very strong lab right here in 19th and Comanche. And I can't see why we couldn't find some way to join forces. They have their own laboratory, but they're a not-for-profit hospital, so our work is different and our mandates are different. But yes, just like we work with them on COVID-19 lab testing, I'm certain that if we had great equipment or they had great equipment and we could work with each other, we could do that. They just don't do DNA, I don't believe.
All righty, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on, but I'm gonna assume that there's support, Dale, for, the positions that we made a decision to create and/or reclass that represent this budget. So if you move on to, is it M?
M is where we now are the
M1?
proposed, M1. Proposed new positions. And I did a summary schedule on M2 where you see the proposed general fund, operating fund, and special revenue fund, so you can see the pluses and the minuses of what were being added and deleted. So you see the total cost per each of the funds, but we definitely can go through each of them. I added the additional emergency management position that you had mentioned, Judge, on that for the emergency
Dale, can I
preparedness.
interrupt real quick?
But
Yes, sir.
Can I say, Judge, just real quick? Basically, the way I'm kind of looking at all of this is I'm still digesting everything, so I don't want to, and I'm not, because if you're going to go through and ask on all these categories, if we don't hear anything, we assume, I don't know that you're going to do that, but I'm really not sure what I'm going to do on anything yet.
That's
So I
fine.
don't want my silence to be misconstrued
I
later down the
appreciate that.
road. I'm still kind of digesting all this.
No problem. Just trying to give Dale some feedback.
Yeah, I understand.
And
I promise I will give him feedback
That's
as I
all
have
we're
throughout this
asking.
process.
Yeah.
I just may not do much of it this week. Until I see everything, Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay, we're gonna go to M1. And the same is gonna apply here, Commissioner. We're gonna go through them. I'm gonna ask for comment, but I'm gonna respect that what you said applied to the list before, it'll apply to this one as well. And that is the recommended new positions, and they start off and they go all the way down, M1, and,
M2, just your
M2,
deleted positions.
yeah, are the deleted ones. So some are kind of just a changing, if you will, of what they used to be and what they're gonna be now. And I'd ask if you have, this is where you, you know, Commissioner Chesney, the one I'm gonna draw your attention to is the natural resource specialist, and we believe that, Go Mesa would be an appropriate use. We did get a large increase in Go Mesa funds this year, Dale. And that was good, and with prices way up high, I'm excited for next year's Go Mesa. You might remember that we, advocated as a court, passed a resolution. I was able to take those resolutions to NACO, and we were able to get those passed, the national level, and in particular, the Gulf Coast Parishes Caucus. And we think that we have very strong support federally for the future of Go Mesa. Do you have any questions regarding that
This year, Judge, we received $720,000.
$720,000?
That's
And
correct.
last year?
It was over $1 million.
Okay, so last year was $1 million, this year was $720,000. Okay, well, that has to do with the decline in pricing, I guess.
That's correct.
Yeah. But we should be back up again next year, I'm thinking.
Yes. But originally, the Natural Resources Specialist was being requested under 0180, which is our coastal parks. With the positions of where it is, it could be funded there if you also see fit, if you still think this position is vital. But however, we think it was funded from Go Mesa in the prior year, so we still think that's a reliable source of funds. But we can definitely make any recommendations that y'all see fit on where to put this in or to exclude it, whatever y'all see fit.
And you don't have to commit now, but I do want to hear from you if you think Go Mesa is, and we have checked with Scott on that, I believe.
I think the Go Mesa funds for that is a great idea.
Okay, super duper. Obviously, the Chapter 59 funds, it's hard to argue with those for item criminal investigator, the use of that. The veteran cemetery are all budgeted positions and are all paid for by the GLO, so just know that.
These are required entry in budgeting items. There is no fiscal impact to the county.
Right. And what I'm gonna do is, on the, trying to think of which other one.
Now, the only one that I was questioning from yesterday is the very top one of the law library, the technical services law librarian.
Right,
I talked to Ida, she still needs this position. However, the funding right now for the law library at 150, which I believe is in tab T, if we do some of this stuff, we might have a reduction of funding below the necessary revenue. So this may require a small one-time entry of a transfer from the general fund to cover some of the cost, maybe for 1 or 2 years until we can start acquiring some grants or some additional fundings from either the Bar Association or start working with Ida to start leasing some space, as well as leasing the Westlaw to the attorneys that use it. So for right now, if we do continue and approve this position, and she does also have a request on her reclassification of moving a person from a intermediate clerk to a library assistant, which is a very small increase of $700. So I still propose we do those, but it may require a small influx of funds from the general fund.
okay, so, and she's good with
Yes.
that change?
Yes.
Well, that'd be good. Okay, there was only one, go ahead.
NCDC, the senior clerk too,
Yes.
we're gonna reduce the temporary salaries in that department of 22,275, so the net increase is 16,005.
Okay, so we can change that one to a net increase of 6. So in other words, no temporary there, Dale. And also, I want you to know that, obviously would like your input, but I am gonna,
I'm sorry, there's no temp, but a full-time?
She's a temporary right now, but we want to make her a permanent senior clerk too. So when we reduce the temporary salaries, the net increase to that department is 16,005 for regular salaries.
rather than 38. And what we'd like to do is, because there was no fundraising abilities last year, we would like to go back, and every year we have to apply for our new funding from the port, and we were at 90. And I let them know yesterday that we were going to apply at 125. And I think that is just in keeping with what has, just like we're trying to help struggling businesses out there, I feel like this is a beginning business. And of course, they can always say no, but I do believe that there's justification. And again, once we start raising our own funds, then that's wonderful. But in order to really get us off the ground, we've proven ourselves to be very good allies. We've proven ourselves to be really important players in economic development. And again, speaking with, someone spoke to Omar, I think it was Belinda.
Yes.
Belinda spoke with Omar, I spoke with John Breyer this morning, and they're going to make a nice presentation. So just so you know, they wanted me to tell you, remember that if they say yes, they don't fund until next year, because their fiscal year is the end of December. So we'd have to carry some water initially.
And that's what we're doing. We're gonna make sure the capital credit we receive from the state on the credits we have for the people that don't receive their electoral credit values will be deposited in here anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000. What I recommend, we've had a budget transfer from the general fund at 50, but I'll leave that as a contingency, whether we won't transfer it unless we need it, kind of funds, but it's still gonna be reported as a budgeted item. So we'll continue to monitor this to make sure we have the funds available. If we get the 125 from there and the $60,000 or $80,000 from the capital credits, we should be having enough funds to cover the operations. Not counting any additional fundraising they may bring in.
And Commissioner Chesney, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that there might be some discussion that you need to have with Dale and Scott. There's the Natural Resource Specialist 1, that's sort of the new position. But I think there's a will, if we needed some help there, is to maybe even forego that position if he can strengthen Megan's position, because Megan is his dune permit person. So I just want you to know that, Dale, that he feels like she's more valuable and would like to expand her, I think is she a 2?
Resources Specialist 2, I'm not sure what the pay group is. It's a split fee
Is she a-
between her
is
and
she a
the
Go Mesa
city and
funded
the
person too?
Public Works.
Is she Go Mesa funded, Commissioner Chesney says?
Between coastal parks and Public Works.
What we're thinking, Brent, I think he's saying he could completely do without Natural Resource Specialist 1 if you wanted to use to help to do Go Mesa. I mean, don't get me wrong, he wants it, but he's more interested in making sure that we don't lose
Well,
that.
what we can probably consider
that strength.
is maybe bring something to work with Scott, maybe bring a reclassification to make this position a higher position.
And then just
and
do
still
special,
do
and then
specialist.
do away with special,
Well, maybe keep it if we need it in the future, but not.
But not this year.
But not this year.
I think that's a good idea.
So, and the question is, can that be shifted to a Go Mesa position if we needed to?
Half
for,
of it.
You know, budgetary purposes.
I believe so. We were doing this before with Go Mesa funds with, when the person was there before as a Specialist 1 and was helping with dune protection. And right now, we're just splitting it because of the dune permitting and that we needed to do, that filled in for the person that retired from Public Works.
And that might help Juan's position too, if 50% of it were paid for by Go Mesa.
Yes, so yes.
We can do
I
it
mean, yeah,
later, but
Anytime we can look at shifting from the general fund to Go Mesa or any other of the special funds, then, you know,
Yeah. I'm
that's
just
something I'd
saying,
be
in the
interested in
world
looking
of-
at for sure.
yeah, in the world of he wants to help and also wants to let you know what's important, he's letting you know that he could help the budget there a little bit and do some shifting. We can talk about that with him afterwards. I'm just bringing
On
that up.
possibly increasing, I don't know, we possibly can increase the salary as the court sees so fit, or maybe create another position higher with more responsibilities that you're mentioning. And definitely, this all can be moved to Go Mesa because it qualified before.
I just want to say the only one, Dale, that I didn't see on here that I thought was the, do you remember when Kevin, I'm looking for my notes here, but I had them. Hold on. Kevin Kieschnick had a request for a title,
Title rejection clerk.
yes.
Yeah, if you go to G1, you'll see that he put in for 6 senior clerks for a call center as well as a title rejection clerk. We believe they were all together, but I can definitely include one of those if we
Well,
see
maybe the
fit, or.
clerk, the title rejection, it seems like the titles was really, I'm just saying if we can shuffle the deck on the natural resource specialist, maybe we can help our tax assessor.
I'll put in the request for the title rejection clerk.
I mean, he was pretty compelling that we are really behind in that department.
Sorry.
That's a cost of 38,477.
That's correct. 38,477 additional cost, yes.
Okay. I think the environmental enforcement was very compelling because if you can get a clerk in there, you could get the people out in the field and they wouldn't have to be, working
And that's the.
harder instead of smarter.
When they came in and did their presentation, that's the main thing they said. They spent a lot of time in their offices doing reports. And that's why I went ahead and said, yes, I agree, they need a clerk to help them do their work. They did request 2 additional officers. Unfortunately, we don't have the funds for this year for that. Maybe next year we can add some more staff. But I do believe the senior clerk will help them get back on the field and be better at the job they're doing.
Well, I think we can have another officer there. Why can't we have another officer? Why can't we?
If y'all want it, we can. I just didn't put it in the moment. An officer cost would be,
It's all about money.
That's right.
Well, like I said, if we
Only
can.
2, I mean, still leaves you 2 for the whole
about
county.
$60,000, around 60. Well, they wanted 3 officers, so
Well, I'm just talking about 1.
I don't, but
60,000.
And while you're looking at that, and again, if we can save some money at the,
one officer would be 45,226. If we want to add one more officer.
I'm looking at the law library. We don't have we're gonna remove the permanent person. We're gonna use it. You can put a code enforcement officer. It'd just be a difference. So, on that area, that's what I'm looking at right now. That was my recommendation anyway.
okay, so maybe do a shift from the law library to the environmental code
Right.
enforcement?
The law library is in its own Fund 15, so we don't need a small transfer of a small amount from the general fund, but, so we could do both if you,
Yeah.
whatever you see fit.
Both, which ones? What do you mean both?
In other words, the law library is not in the
law
general.
library is not in the general fund.
Okay.
So it doesn't impact it in that same way. I will say that I hope that the district clerk's happy that CJIS secretary is so important. Look, all of the positions the department heads asked for are very important, but it's a matter of what can we afford and also where can we prioritize? With CJIS laws changing, that one's just critical for everybody that works the disposition of cases. And also a 1-1, JP's 1-1, just has so much volume, so much volume.
They've already spent at least $40,000 in temporary, so.
Right.
That covers this cost.
Right.
Also I have a question, Dale, on, the DA, district attorney, the county attorney at law number 5, drug court coordinator, we gave him one last year. Is that the same one, or is it an additional one, or?
Came in, they wanted to do with a grant, but they said without a grant, and I believe the associate judge came in and gave you a presentation on the need for this drug court coordinator. We currently don't have one. It was a grant many years ago. They started to get this for County Court Law 5 of how they process this. And they are working on a grant to try to get this information, but they still need this position either way. So if the grant comes in, there won't be any need to fund this from the general fund, but they still say a drug court coordinator is a vital necessity for County Court Law 5.
So there's not an extra one, it's the same one, and that's when Judge Huerta came in and made that presentation, and we all voted yes.
And it wasn't a temp, right? It was a full-time?
Full-time.
Full-time.
It was already approved in court.
But I know they are working on trying to get grants for
are.
it, so they are definitely really hard trying to
Yeah, I
get
remember you
grants.
said that, but the other question I have on the district attorneys, here, I think Teresa mentioned something yesterday. There's this here that those are not new positions, they're just being transferred, right? I mean, because we're closing out everything else in the pretrial.
Those positions reside in 1325, which
Right.
is his, 1323, which is his pretrial diversion. And as all other funds, that there is because of COVID, the revenue doesn't have significant funds to pay for everything. So if we don't move these to the general fund, then we'll have to terminate these 5 employees.
Right.
The DA has said he will transfer at least $300,000 each year to the general fund. And if more comes in than that, he will definitely transfer more. But he's willing to offset $310,000 of this cost of the general fund to continue these services of these employees.
But that won't, I mean, I think that Teresa mentioned something yesterday, that fund was depleted, it had no
It has a negative fund
a
balance.
negative
I
fund
know,
balance.
because, right
So
now,
we're
the
looking
cost
really
of
at
salary is 300, and we only brought in 134 because the lost revenue, and we know the lost revenue from our calculations is 170, so that would cover the entire cost.
So we're talking about 515,000 to
For
cover,
the new position, yes.
and that's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so it's 515,000, the DA will transfer 300.
If
And-
he receives more, he'll be wanting to
And
transfer more.
they're not gonna do it now, because they don't have no money.
Right,
Correct.
So-
but theoretically, next year.
When we were before the pandemic, he was bringing anywhere from $390,000 to $400,000 every year, but once the pandemic came in, this year, we only received 140.
Got
He
it.
believes once this thing gets back up and running again, he'll well exceed $300,000 or $400,000. And I talked with him and Angelica, his first assistant, and they said they'd be willing to definitely transfer more than $300,000
You know,
And-
help
you
cover
know,
the cost.
and I don't really have a problem with that, I mean, I support it, right? But I mean, I'm just saying, we need to show that we are spending 515,000, because if we're gonna spend it, that might be 6 months, you know, and then 6 months, maybe they'll give us the money, or
Yes.
maybe a year, so, I mean, I think we need to show the true numbers here of what we're spending, you know?
Well, those numbers are the true actual expenses for those items. If you had all those 5, that's $500,000.
5, yeah.
I just
515.
said the 310 to cover the cost of the funds provided for.
It's not counting the
30.3.
310, because I don't have it, right?
Right now, no, but they're starting to ramp up their pre-trial diversion, and I foresee that coming in, once we get this thing running again, it'll be easy to bring that much in.
I mean, then we can look at that probably later, but I don't mind the 515 if they, but we just need to show that's what it is, I mean, I think. Okay, thank you. That's all I have on that one.
Dale, I wanted to ask you a question, kind of goes with what Commissioner Gonzalez was asking, but just were you saying kind of the justification for the CJIS secretary that, you know, the dollar amount spending in temps, that kind of justifies the dollar amount to actually just hire full-time?
Correct.
Do we have other positions, or what are, anything that you're recommending here that has something similar to that, where we've been spending a lot on just temps and it's kind of more practical to hire someone?
Well, for our Justice of the Peace 1 has been the one that's been overloaded with caseloads. The rest of the JPs haven't had a whole lot of temporary services, so I didn't foresee that. The district clerk did have a request for another clerk in her staff. She has been running a little bit of temporary services, and because of the increase in cases, our e-filing has been increasing. So, but we feel that the remaining of the staff can take on that. That's why when we add the CJIS, because that is a very important position to make sure we meet the requirements of the state so we can continue getting our grants. So that's why we put those in. Some of the other departments, just because their overtime is a little high on some, we're requesting it. I believe some of our constables may have requested some positions, as well as some of our other smaller departments. But the only one that we saw that really justified a recommended position was JP11 with the amount of temporary services that they had. Now, I know as we said, the tax office put in 6 additional clerks because they want to do a call center, and I believe that's something we may need to talk about, but that may be not something we can talk about this year because of the number of costs we have associated with other stuff. But going with everything else I went through, that's the only one that I really saw that really justified the use of temporary. And as Teresa has been saying, the one for the NCDC, the temporary is working very hard and trying to transfer her to a senior clerk. So those only 2 I saw that justified the move from a temporary to a full-time.
And I know there's some extra costs, obviously, because when you're doing just temp, you're not adding on all the other benefits, and so
Once
there's
you
a
move to
realized
full-time, then you
cost.
have to have your retirement costs and your medical costs and other stuff. There's a There's a little bit more cost associated with it than that, but we see that
That's the start on the equity. Right? I'm sure there were reasonings behind the ones that were larger because, but like I said, if you're going for the equity, it's not gonna move the needle tremendously, so you can argue it both ways, but at least you can showcase it.
there's not much I can do. For example, from a legal secretary 1 to legal secretary 2 is a 13% increase.
Right, I was gonna say, those aren't gonna change, those
Those
are
aren't
the
gonna
same,
change.
those aren't gonna change.
Now, going from admin secretary to admin 3, I can go to a 2 and maybe still with at the percentage wise. And the supervisor, I might be able to work those numbers in, but I'll try to structure a little bit. Some of it's not gonna change a lot.
Okay.
And so with that, I'm gonna go back to M1, and I wanna make sure I've got what we plan on, because we have the emergency management most likely will be the ARPA funds. I've got a question mark to make sure those are possible funding. Right now, they are showing as a general fund, but that's definitely about a $90,000 expense that could be used out of the ARPA funds. I was asked to add a title rejection clerk to the to tax assessor, an environmental officer 1 out of, for the environmental enforcement, and also add a HVAC mechanical system maintenance 2 technician. And there was a request of being out of 1570, but we already have 1 out of 1500, so I'm just gonna move it to Department 1500. And that's the only other addition that I have for those.
Okay, great. And also, standing by for us is William Schul, just so that we can button that up before we break for this budget workshop. If there's no other further questions, everyone can go and work on the budget. William are we gonna call him, or how is it?
I'm gonna ask him to call that number.
Okay, he's gonna call, just so that you can ask the question about the fiscal impact, unless you don't wanna ask.
I know.
You do not want to talk to him about it? Okay, he does not want to talk to him about it. Okay, we can get him on, we'll ask him to call us. Talk about the potential grant.
And again, that's on B9 where we reference the jail assessment program.
He may be having a little trouble with the reception because
That's okay.
he's actually on vacation, but was willing to.
You know what, it's fine. Look, what I'm gonna do is write him an email and then get him to respond, and then we'll circulate it to the court. Because the very person that wanted it just left, so.
Okay.
You know, I believe in risk assessment, but the 2 people that I wanted him to hear and ask questions, they don't want to ask questions anymore, so.
Okay, Judge.
Okay, so, as they say, your government in action, everybody leaves before it's over. Looks like we're looking more like Washington every day. So I'll just say that Commissioner Chesney, thank you for staying on the entire time. And our love and thoughts and prayers are with you, and I'd like to adjourn with that thought in mind. And so,
Thank you, Judge. Can I appreciate the thoughts, and I appreciate everybody on the court who reached out. Really meant a lot. Can't talk too much about that yet, but I did want to raise the issue of whether or not we needed to continue to have the budget meetings for next week. I'm trying to figure out where we're going with all this because I'm happy to discuss things, but I'm going to have my discussions kind of with Dale and give him the input as I digest this. So I was just kind of curious as to whether we needed to keep
Right.
having all these budget meetings or not. And I can't I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me because I'm
It's
at
the
home. I left it
9th
in
and the
office.
10th, Commissioner, and the problem is that we haven't gotten any of Dale's. Remember, we typically by this time, we have our packets with no new revenue rates and voter-approved rates and then everything in between, and we haven't gotten those yet. So what I'm gonna say is if we can eliminate one, we will, but we're gonna have to have one day at least where we at least discuss publicly the no new the rates. The rates. I mean, we have to set a tax rate on the 11th. And so I'll say that maybe we could get rid of one of the days. Sorry, proposed a rate, you're right. And I'd like to hear from
Could
you,
we,
which day would be better?
I would appreciate it. I've
Monday
got,
or Tuesday?
I would, because of my situation, I
Yes.
would appreciate if we didn't meet on Monday, not that should be finished with everything, my personal stuff by then. If we could just meet on Tuesday instead of Monday.
We will do that. I'm going to make that recommendation right now to Tyner to please cancel on the calendar Monday, the 9th. Leave it open for just questions for Dale. Dale, make yourself available on the 9th on a private matter, okay?
Yes.
For commissioners. And then on the 10th, we'll meet as a group and let the public know what those figures really look like. We're going to try to do some work tomorrow, but it really wasn't noticed properly, and so we'll have to figure that out.
Tomorrow's Commissioners Court, right?
I mean, tomorrow for Commissioners Court. But we can maybe Dale's gonna investigate, but why don't you leave Tuesday open? Commissioner Modis, will that work with you?
I'm good either day.
You're
So
good?
I appreciate, keeping it to the 10th then.
All right.
Yeah, I'll try to work
Yeah.
with the county attorney, because the way the agenda item was referenced is just to present the rates.
Yeah.
And I don't want to violate any rules for that,
Correct.
so if we can, talk about it tomorrow, I'll try to expand on it, but we may be limited to what we
course.
present, so, I'll definitely work with Commissioner on the 9th when he has time, and, we'll have the full court on the 10th.
I think that sounds good.
Excuse me, Tanner, I apologize, I walked out because I thought we were done, but I am interested in hearing from the person when he does have time. Doesn't have to be today, though.
Could you have him call Commissioner Hernandez?
Yeah,
No.
He's
William.
calling right now.
He's calling right now. Okay.
Hey, William, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was having problems with the texting.
Yeah, no worries. Good morning, William. So we were discussing the request for the risk assessment officer. And so if you would just give us some background as to, are there any potential, if we were able to fund it this year, do you think there's a potential to have you have any grants or any type of other funding that might be available that we could either expect or help you obtain?
Not at this time, Your Honor. The deal is, the pretrial risk bond assessment officer is not an actual probation duty. So, it's not a position that the probation department needs. We do it for the county, basically. It helps the judges figure out risk for failures to appear and for recidivism on a bond offense. So as far as probation's concerned, CJAD will not give me any funding for that at this time.
Understood. And we have a question here for you. Hang on. Do we have a question, Commissioner Hernandez?
No, I just wanted to.
Oh, just wanted to hear him. And so if you wanted to articulate any further, it's a very good point you make that it's a real assistance to the judges and the magistrate. Do you want to kind of present any kind of a
Sure.
argument for it? Because we're debating that right now.
Sure, I understand. No, the problem with having two staff only work 7 days a week, it gets difficult when someone gets sick, when someone goes on vacation, when someone is just off, just one person there. And it takes around 30 to 45 minutes per assessment. And they're probably doing anywhere from 20 to 40 inmates. So not only do you have to perform the assessment, you have to do a background on Odyssey, looking for failures to appear. You also have to look at NCIC, TCIC for other offenses, criminal history. Then you have to write the report, send it to the judge or to the court manager. And in between all that, you're signing out offenders who are on bond supervision. You're answering questions from the magistrate, from the jail, things of that nature. So it just becomes, instead of, our goal is to assess somebody within 24 hours. And sometimes that's just not happening because of just one person being in the jail because someone's off or someone's sick. And so, that's the goal, but sometimes it's 48, 72 hours. So at times, instead of having somebody out in 24, 36 hours, they're there an extra day or two just because the judge is waiting on an assessment. It's just the mere volume of people coming through the jail. We've seen, we were at capacity this summer, and we still are, we're still high numbers. And I just feel that with a third person, we could do a better job. The county could do a better job in the end, and the judges receive the reports quicker. And that's my goal.
Thank you, William. That's what we were wanting, a little background on it.
Excuse me, William,
Yes, sir.
the people that have gone through that, do you keep tabs on them? I mean, do you keep track of them?
It depends on the judge if the judge puts them on bond supervision or not. It depends on the offense, and different judges require us to supervise certain offenders depending on the offense or depending on their criminal history.
I understand. Well, it sounds like you've got a full load, so. all
Oh,
right,
definitely so. Definitely so.
Thank you very much.
Especially since COVID.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Were there any other questions?
No, thank you, William. Appreciate you reaching out to us and helping us to answer these questions. If there are any further, I'm going to let the court email you directly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, William. Bye-bye.
So in the world of money news, it did take a second time, but they did pass the rate increase of 5% for TWIA, and it will take effect January 1. And so, there you go. So with that, Dale, we'll just see everybody tomorrow. And the way you know the meeting is over is I say the words as the presiding officer, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.